everyone, hope you're doing well. This is UC Kalu here with the movie review. Today we're talking about Selah and the Spades. It is a 2019 American drama film written and directed by Tyree Chapeau in her directorial debut, and it stars Lovey Simone, Celeste O'Connor, Jarrell Jerome, Gina Torres, and Jesse Williams. It was actually released last January, as in January 2019, but it was recently released on Amazon Studios for our viewing pleasure. So let's get right into it. You know how my reviews are. I usually don't like to spend too much time talking about the very specific intricacies of the movie, but more so the overall vibe, the premise, and things that I thought were done very well and things that I thought were done not so well. So one thing that definitely jumps out with the movie is the fact that we haven't really had an indie coming-of-age, high school-aged movie which stars a young, dark-skinned black female and also an ensemble of other black characters where they aren't being threatened with their blackness, they aren't being robbed of their joy, so to speak. It seems very universal in terms of these kids could have been white kids, they could have been any other race, but it is refreshing to see kids who are black, who are in their blackness. It's not like they're pretending not to be black, but it's not some stereotypical gangbanger, police brutality, things of that nature. You know, obviously you'll say, well, in the movie they were technically drug dealers to an extent, but it wasn't like this sense of how are we going to rob these kids of their joy? How are we going to rob them of their innocence? And that was something that I really appreciated in the movie, that in the end of the day, they were teens first, and their blackness is a part of them and is explored in various themes, but it's not necessarily meant to be a plot device that we've seen done over and over, done to death. Because that's one thing, you know, that we notice, you know, as a black person, when you're watching these movies, these shows, it's just a sense of like the black character is only there to suffer, only there to have pain, only there to enhance another character's story, and it was just very refreshing from that perspective. So, without rambling too much further, I'll talk about what I liked about the movie. Overall, I don't know. I know, you know, movies, you usually give them a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 5 stars. I like the movie a lot from an aesthetic standpoint. It was definitely on point in terms of having a vibe, and I do feel like I'm not a big time movie maker or anything, but I do feel like movies can be enjoyed visually or they can be enjoyed by the content. And I do feel like in this case, it was a movie that was more of a visual spectacle. Selah, or the actress who played her, Lovey Simone, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, is gorgeous and she's excellent to look at on the screen. She definitely works the camera well, definitely has organic reactions. The characters have good rapport with each other. The interactions are great. However, in terms of a content perspective, I felt the movie wasn't as robust in terms of doing more with the plot, which is interesting, essentially, having these 5 factions of this boarding school. Anyone who knows me, I'm guilty of loving high school premises, boarding school premises. I wrote a novel series that's probably really crappy about a boarding school experience. So it is something that I think is cool. And I do feel like at times it wasn't as actualized, the setting, and it would have been very interesting from that perspective. So going into my thoughts with the movie, more so going on that scale, I said the 1 to 5, I would probably give it about a 3 out of 5, just because, again, there was something conceptually I felt missing in terms of really feeling like everything was deliberate, really feeling like there were stakes. I felt like it just kind of was nice to look at, but I didn't really have that sense of what exactly is at stake. What does Selah want? What does Maxie want? What does everyone want? What's really standing in their way? And what's going to happen if they don't get it? So I felt like that could have been explored a little bit more. But however, I believe Amazon is making this into a series, and I did feel as I was watching the movie that this would have excelled as a series. I definitely had vibes of sort of like Dear White People, like how the movie I felt wasn't that great. Well, I thought it was fine, but the series definitely fleshed some things out, really heightened the stakes and the characterizations for me. So definitely something that I think I'm excited for, and I would hope they'd be able to keep a lot of the casts that they had. Going to my thoughts, there is a scene where Selah, Paloma, and the new girl and Maxie are just outside, and they're like smoking, and they're just having fun. They're just having joy, and I feel like that is an important scene. It's just this idea of black joy without it being robbed away from them, and that was something that I thought was very refreshing about this particular movie. However, there's certain tropes that I felt the movies fell into. For example, just Selah and her position, like she seems really adamant about having power, and I wish we could have explored why does she have this power? Like why is she the head of her faction, the Spades, and who gave her that power? Why is everyone sort of gravitate towards her? Because you can see Paloma gravitate towards her, you can see Maxie gravitate towards her. And so I wish there was a little bit more of a sense of what exactly did she do to get there, which you do see to an extent that she is ruthless. She does understand what it means to have power, what compromises need to be made, but just a little bit more likability on her behalf. And I know there's that whole thing of how we characterize main female characters and stuff, but I do feel there were some opportunities to sort of flesh her out just a little bit more, kind of get where she's coming from, which, you could probably tell from her dynamic with her mother that there's some strained dynamics there and wanting to be perfect. But I do feel like amongst her friends, for there to be a little bit more of lightening of her character in terms of feeling just a bit more comfortable, a bit more less hardened, if that makes sense. Something else that I really enjoyed about the movie was just a scene where one of the earlier scenes of the movie where Selah is talking to Paloma about not feeling the urge to be with anyone. And, that was kind of dope. I was like, wow, are these like ace vibes, like asexual vibes, of Selah? And I think it is cool as well to have a main character, the protagonist, who isn't fawning after a boy or something like that. Just to have a character who is a little bit more inward and isn't necessarily allowing herself to fall victim to sort of external pressures, if that makes sense. So that was an interesting, refreshing thing to see with her as well. I enjoyed the setting. Jesse Williams, no one's ever going to complain about him. But again, just some missing details like the factions, and this could all be me as well. I definitely think this is something that I would watch again. But, just like having a better sense of the factions, like what exactly does each faction do? What exactly are each of the factions doing? What exactly are the stakes? Obviously they don't want to get caught dealing and things like that. But just what exactly are the characters' stakes? There's a little bit too much aesthetic over substance, I would say. But in the end of the day, a movie is meant to, I think, hold your interest and keep you interested. But I do feel like that's where I would have loved a little bit more. And that's why you're like, Uche, you've only been talking about how much you don't like it. But I feel like that's kind of how I am with things I like. I'm just like, I just really wish it would have pushed it a little bit further. But that being said, I am very excited about this movie. I was excited to watch it. So yeah, again, I think Miss Poe did a lot of great things with the movie, just really having a movie with black kids where it didn't feel like a black movie, quote unquote, per se. Some interesting themes, just some thought-provoking questions about why do we want power? What does it mean to have power? How do you hold on to that power? I thought Selah's mom, her adage about the scorpion and the frog, that was a very interesting story, and I do feel like that's something that Selah sort of has to do with, where I believe she is like the scorpion. She is sharp, she is powerful, but what happens to the people who aren't trying to be like you? Will you ultimately hurt them at the end? And that's definitely something that I think she has to reflect on, and you see at the end of the movie that comes into fruition, and so that would be something to explore and would be really interesting to see in a series with more time to understand her reasoning and her operation. Sort of as like a last minute thought, I did wonder with Selah, and this might just be like the med student in me, it's just if there's anything with her, like, would she exist on any spectrum, like a high functioning autism spectrum, or is there some sort of cognitive distance? Just because there's some sense of there are scenes where she's like looking in the mirror and practicing how to smile and things like that, and that sort of reminded me of there was this author Helen Hoang who was mentioning, that a lot of times in women that we aren't diagnosed with having, high functioning autism or things like that until we're well into adulthood, because we are good at hiding how we feel and playing the game, so to speak. So that would be something interesting to explore. I felt like there are some hints of Selah potentially being asexual or gravitating on an asexual spectrum, potentially having high functioning autism, potentially having something different about her that I thought was interesting. And on a second or third watch, I believe it might be easier to pick up on these cues. But overall, I felt it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I'm really excited for it. I hope this paves the way for filmmakers and film reviewers to look at movies with black kids, dark skinned black girls as the lead, and help Hollywood just be more representative of the audiences that watch their movies and enjoy the medium. So yeah, let me know if you have any thoughts or questions below. Sorry if I seemed like I was bouncing all over the place. I literally just watched the movie a couple hours ago, but I just had some thoughts that I really wanted to make sure I got down. And let me know if there's any things you wanted me to talk about in more detail. Again, I try to stay away from just rehashing plot points and just going on major premise and vibes that I got. But I do feel like Miss Poe has a career ahead of her, and it was very well shot, and I'm really excited to see what more she will bring to the table. So, all right, thank you for watching. This is UC Kalu. If you haven't subscribed below, please go ahead and do so, and let me know if there are any other films you'd like me to watch or review and comment on. Okay, thanks again, and have a good night or morning wherever you are. Okay, bye.